Let's go to the draft. It's in the books. Let's do big winners and losers. I got Dan Orlovsky, I got Damian Woody, and Schrager, I'll start with you. Give me a big winner coming out of the draft.
I'm going to give you a player. It's Ruben Bain. It was a horrible night for him in that he thought he was going top 10. He slips to 15. But guess what? He's going to a franchise that looked at him as their top dude off the edge, and also going to a team that is playoff ready, and to a coach, Todd Bowles, who will use them. More than anything, the Bucs wanted Bain, and Bain's going to be playing with an enormous chip on his shoulder. I am fired up to see Ruben Bain, who's all business, going to Tampa.
What do you think of that one, Dan? What do you think of that pick, Ruben Bain?
I thought the Ruben Bain pick and the Keontae Scott pick, 4th round, the cornerback out of Miami, were both outstanding picks. The Buccaneers continue to draft well. They were a very good football team last year, dealt with a little injuries down the stretch. I know no Mike Evans, but everyone's and rightfully so, Rams, the NFC West, all that. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be a fantastic group again.
D-Wood, how about the other side? Give me someone you thought did not come out so well from this draft.
How about the 49ers? You know, they trade out of the first round and pick a receiver, you know, in the top of the second round. When, you know, Denzel Boston was there to be picked. They didn't go with that. Then in the third round, they pick a running back, Kalen Black from the national champs, Indiana. This was a guy that wasn't invited to the combine. He only had 4 catches all last year. Is that a guy that, you know, possibly be the backup to Christian McCaffrey, who doesn't catch the football? Is a non-receiving threat in that backfield. I thought the fact that they didn't add an offensive lineman early in the draft, which is a clear need for an offensive line that could use more, you know, youth at that position. So it was a really strange draft for the 49ers.
What were people saying? Because they made a lot of picks that surprised most of the people who prognosticate about these things.
This happens to be a real discussion in San Francisco media circles right now. Grant Cohn, the reporter out there in San Francisco, pressed John Lynch on it and said, no one had Kalen Black as a day 2 pick. Like, can you explain? And the 49ers, to their point, said, we have our own board. We don't care about the guys on TV. We don't care about the consensus. Our consensus is what matters, which leads to a greater point. The success of their drafts, there are some misses, there are some hits, and whether or not it matters where you draft a player based on what everyone in the consensus on TV believes.
Yes, no, obviously it doesn't. I mean, if you're taking a player in that spot, if he winds up being an excellent player, then that is
Stribling and Black are the big areas where Niners fans are saying, why?
I love they took them ahead of other players who most people had rated higher. Doesn't mean they'll wind up being better players, but I understand why those are the questions. Orlovsky, give me one more winner from the weekend.
I'm going to say the Cincinnati Bengals, not only from the weekend, but also this offseason. I think they have improved as much as any football team in the NFL this offseason. Obviously, the addition of Dexter Lawrence. They get Cassius Howell, who was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, I believe led the SEC in sacks. So we're talking about a football team that defensively has struggled for so long. Now they get a run-stopping and pass-rushing defensive tackle. If Cassius Howell takes a step forward, we know they acquired Brian Cook in free agency. This could be a good football team.
Boye
Mafe, if they can get a little bit out of their Shamar Stewart, their first-round pick from last year. This is the most complete football team that Joe Burrow has had since that Super Bowl run team that he went, I believe, in 2021. We know the offense is going to be great. We know the defense is much improved. A lot of pressure on Joe Burrow to go get it done this year, at least for the next 2 years.
I think the flip side of that, if you will, is that there was pressure on the organization to make sure that Joe Burrow believed
rightfully so
in staying there, and maybe they've taken some steps in that direction.
Look, the Dexter Lawrence trade around the league, people are like, you have a 10th overall pick. The way the Bengals looked at it was they needed defensive tackle. There wasn't one to be had in the first round. The first one that went was Peter Woods, and he went 26 or 27th.
A very late round
29th overall to the Chiefs. They looked at that as worthy of the 10th overall pick. They paid Dexter Lawrence. They got that done. That's going to be the whole key of this winning draft. Dexter Lawrence, who wasn't even a player selected this weekend.
And, you know, D-Wood, there's a lot of different ways to look at things. Or the last day that I was here, so last Tuesday, Graziano was making the point, the Bengals look at themselves this way. They're the only team in the division that didn't change coaches during this offseason. They're all of a sudden the stable franchise in the AFC North, and they're just a little defense away from potentially being a legitimate contender.
Absolutely. And again, just to echo what Dan, I love what they've done via free agency and the draft on the defensive side of the ball. You know, because they've just been, quite honestly, they've been atrocious on that side of the ball. But the additions that they've made, I think these guys are going to be impact players on that side of the ball. Bengals can score with anyone. I think the biggest thing is Joe Burrow has to stay healthy. Joe Burrow has to stay on the field.
He's got to take that on himself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. He has to take ownership of that, because if Joe Burrow is healthy with the additions that they have on the defense side, the Bengals are going to make some serious noise in the AFC.
Well, so you know, because you sit here with Rex every Monday, Rex has been very critical, not so much of Burrow, but of their offense in general. The way it's designed winds up with Burrow getting hit a lot. Is that something that they need to address?
They started to a little bit last year at times when Joe wasn't on the field and was the other Joe Flacco.
Who's back, by the way.
In the offensive line, I've been critical. It improved last year, that offensive line. So it's a little bit of scheme. It's a little bit Burrow. And I also think, just touching on the Bengals, Greeny, it is very interesting that we sit here in April right now and two quarterbacks that have gone to and one has won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years kind of have like a little bit of a question mark with their future. Joe Burrow being another one and Jalen Hurts being the other one. There's a lot of pressure on those two players, whether strictly by performance or, availability to just what is their long-term future within that organization and that team?
What do you think? Final word.
I think it's really interesting to vision as a whole because the Ravens are going over a whole overhaul of their coaching staff, and the Steelers, of course, are as well. And we've always considered those the two powers, and the Bengals this X factor. Are the Bengals the favorites going into the season? This might be the first time we've said that since they went to the Super Bowl that year.
I thought the Ravens had a great draft myself. I thought the Ravens did very well over the weekend.
Totally agree.
So we'll see what winds up happening. Now we get to the risky Rams.
It's the London Marathon.
Don't worry about the pick.
I can do two things at once.
Let's start with Carson Beck. He was the third quarterback off the board. First pick in the third round. What did you think?
Yeah, I think this is a smart pick by Arizona. I think Carson Beck's going to contend to be their starting quarterback very early on in the season, if not week one. He has played in 55 college football games. Smart player. My only knock on him, trust yourself more. Stop babying too many throws, but his experience lends himself to being able to pick that offense up quickly.
All right, the next quarterback taken in this draft was Drew Aller from Penn State, third round by the hometown Steelers. What did you think of that pick? What do you think their plan is?
Yeah, it looked like Tarzan. I've been a Drew Aller fan for a long time. Early on in his college career, calling some of his games, he's got all the physical tools. Mike McCarthy, who's the head coach in Pittsburgh, his offense is predicated on your feet. Quarterbacks and their feet are everything. Drew Aller has struggled with that. He will drill that into him for the next months. If it happens, I think he's got a chance. I fully expect Aaron Rodgers to be their starting quarterback in 2026.
Could be a good situation for Aller. And then there's the situation this man finds himself in. The LA Rams taking Ty Simpson earlier than anyone expected. He went 13 overall. Once and for all, what did you think of the pick?
I think it's a very smart pick by the Los Angeles Rams. I fully think that this Los Angeles Rams football team will be in the Super Bowl. And honestly, right now, I expect them to win it if they stay healthy. If that happens, it's in LA, the Super Bowl. I could absolutely see Matthew Stafford retiring and moving on. If that's the case, the Rams will not skip a beat. This young man's a much better player than the public perception. His tape screams first-round pick.
Yeah, so there isn't any question. Let me reframe that. There are questions. The question is about the player, and then the question is about the pick. Everyone knows how you feel about the player. You loved him, and you're by no means the only one, and obviously the Rams did too. Then there's the pick. What did you think overall of the decision to take him at 13?
I didn't have another team taking Ty Simpson that early, and I think the thought was that the Cardinals at 3, if they moved back, as was rumored, maybe it would be for Ty Simpson, as they also needed a quarterback, and they eventually got Carson Beck. But I didn't have a team screaming to me in my intel that they were taking Ty Simpson in the early part of the first round. That said, they pass on Mekhi Lemon and they pass on Kenyon Sadiq. Me as a reporter, I'll tell you they're thinking behind it. We could do that all day long. As an analyst, I can only imagine if the Eagles are playing the Rams in the NFC Championship game and Mekhi Lemon goes for 9 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown, and Ty Simpson hasn't taken a snap all year, it's fair to question taking that player in this season with all the eggs in the basket and saying, hey, we're going in for this year.
What do you think of it, D. Wood?
I'm just thinking of it as a former player. If I'm a guy in the locker room, it's like, how does this guy help me this year? For me, the Rams are the favorite. I love the Rams as a Super Bowl favorite. This guy does nothing for me this year. And listen, I understand looking towards 27 and beyond, but he does nothing for me in 2027.
I think you used the term threading a needle, and I think that's an interesting one to use because I see both sides. If you're the general manager and theirs is excellent, then your job is both to look after the present and the future. As a fan, and that's really at the end of the day the way I think, I root for a team that I've never seen win a championship. I think winning a championship is invaluable. To me, I would look at it as I'm going to get a player who can help me win right now, and I'll worry about the future when I get to the future. That's the way I would look at it, which is why I would question the pick. But having said that, I understand why if they love the player, if they believe this guy is going to be our quarterback for a decade, then I understand why they do it.
But we continue to use the phrase, a player to help me win now, and only correlate it to a draft pick. What happens if the player that helps them win now is on another team right now?
Right.
And come November and the trade deadline and the Rams are 10-1 and they start making calls and they're going to give the first round pick of the 2027 draft to a team to acquire that wide receiver.
I think it's a great take, and I gave the windy fingers on NFL Live on Friday, and Les Snead does not sleep.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be in November. It could be next week. It could be in June.
Correct.
It could be a wideout. It could be a tight end. It could be whoever it is. The fact they got Trent McDuffie, no one saw that coming.
Right.
So they're one of the teams that's always looking to add. And I would just add this. The communication is so key with Stafford. Dan, I would push back and ask, if you're Matthew Stafford, and this is you understand why McVay kind of wasn't performative, but why he wasn't doing jubilant jumping up and down. You can't show up your quarterback either.
Totally. I'm the reigning MVP. I just had a career year. I've proven, and we're in contract negotiations. That's a real thing. I haven't talked to Matthew about it. I'm sure Matthew's not like, rah. I'm sure Matthew said, cool. You better go get me somebody.
Yeah.
Like, you better go get. And I'm sure Les Snead and Sean McVay are going, we will.
But the point, yes, I get it, they will. They probably will. But what I'm saying is everything can be just viewed as an asset. The 13th pick in this draft was an asset. How valuable? Maybe not as much as the 13th pick in other years might be, but it was a valuable asset. And they did not utilize that particular asset, whatever they do from this point forward, in the aim of winning this year's championship. And that would be the part of it that you question if you were them. And if I'm Stafford, I'm not happy about it. You can say whatever you want. If I'm Stafford, I'm not happy. Get me anybody who might help me win a championship and ride off into the sunset in that way.
Go ahead.
No, listen, a couple things. Number one, boy, if you come up short, there are going to be people like, that 13th pick, you could have had an opportunity there. Also, you're going to go a long time for this young man not to be playing football. Mm-hmm. A long time. Like, he's played 15 games in college, and then presumably he's going to go a whole year without taking another snap. That's a long time for a guy.
What was the number on that? Because I want to hear from Dan if that's a real thing.
Backed up Bryce Young.
Right.
And then backed up Jalen Milroe. He was at Alabama for 5 years, played 15 games. He's going to miss all this year in a redshirt season. That means he'll be taking his 16th game in college or pro in a 7-year span. That's a long time.
How big a deal is that?
That is a factor. Absolutely. You only get better at playing the game by playing the game. He's going to get incredibly well coached. He's going to learn from a future first ballot Hall of Famer. At some point, he's going to get on the field. If you're the Rams, when is that? That'll be figured out in the future.
I think to flip it, he couldn't have wound up in a better spot.
Totally.
I mean, if you're him to get coached by Sean McVay and to learn
I'll
from
tell you
Matthew
this
Stafford.
right now, and as much as I love Matthew, this cat has to play next year. He's going to play very much so winning football, and the Rams will be a playoff team.
We'll find out. All right, Dan loves. Look, you've made no secret of the fact that you believe in him, and he went 13, so they agreed. Coming up, the power of love.